We live yet?
Yeah, we're
welcome to the Daily HiFi Podcast. It is Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am Chana, aka the Techno Dad, and I'm on location here. About to do some work. Had a little break, but if you guys want to see something cool, here are the RCF line array speakers.
Whoa.
And
nice.
These little R2D2 looking things.
Little.
These things are the size of my head. Anyway, I'm Chana, aka Techno Dad. We've got Joe, we've got Aaron, Michael, and Elon Osborne is in the house. What is up, everybody? How are you guys doing today?
What's going on, man?
So good.
Chana coming in clutch last second. Does the killer intro.
Dedication.
You rock, man.
That's cool, man. Well, it's good that you had a little break so you could just say what's up, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
your video is actually pretty good quality.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
it's a cell
full
phone.
house. It's a full house today. Let's see who's in the chat. I see Reverend Slim. I see Tim Perry. What's up, Tim? Thank you for all the stuff that you do. Kamish, what's up? He says dual voice of God in the house. Yeah, he emailed me, I think, about that setup. He sets them up in parallel on his AVR. Just two, and kind of lets it matrix up there.
Oh, wow.
Let's see here. Yeah. What's up, everybody? What's up with you guys?
Doing
What's
good,
up?
man. Doing good.
Anything new? Let's see. Oh yeah, Juan. Gotta say what's up to my wife. What's up? Yeah. Oh man. So nothing new with you guys or what?
I'm getting on a plane this Thursday, man.
Oh, you're ready for about 16 hours?
I've never been like around the world, so I'm pretty pumped, man. Me and Jessica are going to the Philippines. So there's a gentleman over there, Wayne Pomposa, and
Where are you going, Mike?
to the Philippines. Manila, Philippines.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Manila.
yeah. So it's gonna be super cool, man.
Going
So
to
we're
my
gonna make some-
hometown, huh?
Yeah. So in
All
one
right.
of the, we're gonna film at Wayne's place. He's an integrator, designer, home theater installer. So we're gonna do some videos there, and then we're also gonna drive about 45 minutes to Doug Kramer's home and check out his home theater. He's got a big home theater. He had the first JTR system in the Philippines. So pretty pumped.
Yeah,
man.
he used to be a
It's fun.
basketball player, I guess, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. I'm a little bit jealous because my family, they were all there. Actually, some of them are still over there. You know, they had a big thing where everybody just went over there.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't really ready right
Yeah.
now. You know, with the
I get
kids, and that
I get it.
16-hour flight is no joke.
Yeah. It's gonna be a bear, man. We're gonna-
16 hours is no joke. With these kids, they can't sit for 16 minutes. So
Yeah, I'm gonna try to edit some videos on the way.
yeah, cool, man. That's exciting.
Yeah.
You make sure to have some good food.
Yep. Now
Yeah.
Jessica, she's not gonna eat any of it probably. I'm like, come on, baby, you gotta do this, man. Gotta go all in. So
I
I
don't.
want to try some. Is it called
She doesn't have
Filipino? Is it Filipino?
Yeah, I mean, there could be some. You know, they're probably gonna try to make you eat some crazy food like some balut or something like that. But you know,
Is there anything that I need to try over there?
I think they're just gonna enjoy seeing you. You know, eat something that most people is pretty disgusting. So
Oh, that's hilarious.
you know, just because it's funny.
Balut?
Yeah.
I
But
see it in
most
the
of the
chat.
stuff is just good, like just good food. So
Nice.
yeah,
I hear everybody over there that has been telling me that has visited this. They're like the folks over there, man. They're just super hospitable. They're just super kind. So
yeah. Look at me.
I know, bro. I know.
No, yeah. When I go there, it just reminds me, like, man, these people know how to live. Like over here, we're all about all about that hustle. You got to make that money. Boom, boom, boom. Over there, they don't have so much money. But think
Mhm.
about why you make all that money, right? Because you want a big house so you can have a lot of people over, and then you can have a party, and then you can have good food, and you can do all this stuff, right? And you get this big house, and like, do a lot of people come over? Like, is it all the time? Is that they're getting together all the time, having
Yeah.
a party, drinking, eating, just hanging out, dancing. And so it's kind of like they just skipped the whole money part. They just went straight to that's how I feel about it, right? Of course, everybody's a little different, but yeah, I think hopefully that's what you experience. Is like, man,
Yeah.
you don't even need that much to have a good time. So that's why, personally, I don't worry about not having money. Like I see a lot of people are just always worried. You know what I mean? They're always concerned that you're not going to be able to pay this or pay that. I'm like, you know what? The worst case scenario, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? So
I think
anyway.
the best thing we ever did was just pay off debt. When we had two car payments and credit cards and student loans, man, it just bogged us down financially so much.
Mhm.
But once we paid all that stuff off, it took us about 6 years. We had $50,000 in consumer debt, and we didn't even own a home. So we're like, all right, beans and rice and beans, no vacations kind of thing. We just hustled to pay it all off. I started a business and website development to help pay that off. And so that was like one of the best things.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't like that.
Definitely takes a lot of stress off.
For sure. Well, that's exciting, man. It's exciting. You're going to the Philippines. Yeah, just have a good time.
Yeah, dude.
I know you'll do some work. But yeah, Matthew says, yep, totally found the secret of life. Yeah, as long as you keep perspective that, what is your goal? What is your goal?
Yeah.
Do you need these things to get to that goal, or can you just be happy?
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out, you know what? You can just be happy.
Yeah.
That's it. You can be happy. I can eat ramen.
Yeah.
I'm alive. I can be happy. So,
Just ramen.
Yeah, I'd rather have those nice steaks though. You know what I'm saying? Like I can see both sides. I don't have to have it, but if I have it, I have those filet mignon. I can also appreciate it. So
yeah.
Let's see here. What else we got? Elon, what's up, man? By the way, good to have you back, and you got your legit setup. You don't have to mute yourself. We're good here.
Oh, it's fine because my kids, I've got a walkie-talkie next to me just in case, and they were
there you go.
So I had to
Dad, I'm hungry. Come on.
Dad life. I want to hear the walkie-talkie though.
Yeah, apparently something hit the window, and they had to tell me about it. So that's cool. That's awesome, don't worry about it, but also don't talk to me right now.
That's awesome, man. Hey, we're chilling here. Look at Chana. He's in the middle of like some wedding thing.
I'm at work. Did you guys see the picture? Oh, I can post up that picture.
Yeah.
They did this. They did the ceremony at the top of the mountain, so it was at 11,053 feet. Ooh.
Wow.
So it was cold. It was cold. It was like 20 degrees. Yeah, let me find it and toss it up there. Usually we don't have weddings in the winter, so this is a little bit odd. But yeah,
were
it's going well.
And stuff?
The guests were the bride, groom, and the wedding party wasn't. And so these girls must have been cold, man. They had this little like off the shoulder thing, exposed arms and stuff. And I'm over there, my puffy, out of face mask and beanie, all kinds. Like it's cold. It's cold.
Hey, what's the weather like over there, Aaron? Is it cold over there?
Yeah, it's actually. For here it's cold. It's in the 40s right now. It was 29 last night, so it's going to be kind of cold. Yeah.
You and Shauna know, like you and Shauna really know, because over here I'm like, I got my sweater on. It's like 70.
73 down here, man. I'm in t-shirt, shorts.
Yeah.
Hoodies and jackets.
Those are funny.
Funny. Yeah. Anything you guys want to talk about in particular, audio related?
Audio related.
Yeah, audio related. I guess we can talk about anything, but you know how that goes.
I got something music related. I got a plug. I kind of talked to you, Joe, about this, but I was in LA over the weekend visiting some friends, and since we knew we were going to be down there, we just check things out and thought like, well, since we're in LA, a lot of stuff happens in the entertainment industry in LA, so maybe let's go see a concert or a stand.
Oh, is this the Hollywood Bowl concert? I saw a picture of.
No, it was actually a concert at the U2 Theater. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. YouTube Theater.
It was the first time I'd ever been there. It's just outside of SoFi Stadium where the Chargers and the Rams play in Inglewood. But
Compton.
I was there to see Young the Giant. They were like the headliner, right?
Oh, cool.
But the opener was Danielle Ponder. I don't know if you heard of her. She's like this up and coming soulful singer but she also has like beats underneath her music. But man, I mean, I would hearken her voice to be kind of like a female CeeLo Green, even though CeeLo Green still sings really high. Like she just has like kind of the same timbre, but man, those pipes are incredible. She can belt it out like nobody's business. So if Danielle Ponder is coming to your town, I highly recommend trying to go see her, because she's still pretty small now, because just a year ago she was a public defender. And she just decided, you know what? My music is really kind of starting to take over. So it's either be a lawyer or be a singer. And
dude,
right path, because she is amazing. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah. There's this one guy who is really just blown up. His name is John Summit, and he was a accountant, and he gave that up, and now he's like putting out some of the best music and playing all of the big festivals. So
That's funny.
Sometimes you just gotta quit the boring job. So here's what I did at my job today. So this is the view from 11,053 feet elevation. And we did get that big snowstorm. So so these mountains in the background, those things are so far away. Like, and then if I took a picture on the other side, it would, everything else would be all white as well. But it was funny because like all these skiers and snowboarders, because we're open, our Mammoth is open, they're all off to the side, like videotaping. So they're like, "What's this? What's going on?
That's
fun. Is this a wedding? Okay." So
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So there's a break. They don't come into the reception area for another couple hours. So
gotcha.
Very cool.
Yeah.
See, Chani gets the fun job, man. It's all work, but he has some fun doing it, man.
Well,
and you're great at it too, man.
Well, that's the you have to be. You have to be. I was talking to this one other person on TikTok, this other DJ. She's like, "Oh, well, I practice this, that, and the other." I'm like, "Practice? What's that?" Because I don't practice anymore. It's been a long time since I actually practiced. I think the weddings are my practice, because like I have to like play all kinds of music, like music that isn't on a grid, like anything from the 70s and 60s. And trying to DJ that. So I'm like nudging it forward as I'm playing, mixing it into Bruno Mars or some nonsense like that. So there's a lot of stuff that keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. So, well, you got maybe that's my both worlds, right? So you have fun and you make money.
That's right.
That's right. You want to know what the secret is? That have fun and make money. That's what I'm about.
Yeah. I mean, today I had 2 gondola loads. I couldn't drive up here like I normally do in the summer because we have all the snow. So that was one of those kinds of things. They're little things to like, little hurdles to get over. But yeah, overall, like that's pretty legit. And the best part is like, I can pay for all the fancy.
Choice. Let's see. Hold on.
Fancy stuff. There you go.
Nice.
And look. This is Pioneer, and this is Denon.
Those are pretty crazy though, because I saw that like. I just looked it up one time, and they can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Those are like little computers right there, right?
Yeah.
Like,
look,
you got the vocals and stuff like that.
What is that? What is that?
That's awesome.
Oh, you can do like the little iPhone dealie.
That's crazy high tech, man.
Yeah. Can you like take out vocals or like separate out Can you separate out tracks and like take out vocals and things like that?
Oh, that's the new Serato update. Yeah.
Oh,
so if I run it that way, I can. But yeah, this technology is great. So like when people ask like, do you practice? I say no, because I come from vinyl when like you couldn't do anything but start the song at the very beginning. So now all I do is I just get the tracks and put cue points throughout the track. So if I'm going to use a middle, I can use a middle.
Do you practice though? Because Don wants to know.
We're talking about practice.
We talking about practice? We talking about practice?
No, I do everything live off the cuff, and like all these people, like they're like, well, you don't plan out your set? No, I don't plan out anything. I the only thing I plan is the very first song, and then I go off what the crowd does.
Aaron knows about practice though, right?
We talking about practice. We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice.
We're not talking about the game, not the game.
Not the game.
We talking about practice.
That's Allen
Can it do Oro? Or no, it can't.
Oh
do
my
Oro.
gosh.
It can't do Oro. Can't do, no, but you can upmix it to Oro if you want.
Even better.
Yep.
All right. For y'all who don't know, y'all need to Google "We Talking About Practice" and go and watch that because it is one of the greatest things you'll ever see. It will not be wasted. You'll be happy that you watched it.
Talking about practice.
Practice. Okay.
Let's see here. This is a good question. I like this. So WA asked Chana Joe, Mike. I'm assuming he means Aaron and Elin also.
We're out. We can't help.
Yeah, sorry.
Come on, Elin. Let's go join another channel.
Okay.
I'm noticing that home theater guys also end up having better rigs than 2-channel stereo audio files. The 2-channel guys don't use subs, no room measurements, etc. Why? Okay.
I've not noticed that. I haven't noticed that. No, I have not. That could be because my channel's more like I do a lot of 2-channel stuff, but I haven't really noticed. I've actually kind of noticed the opposite for what it's worth. So.
I've seen people like just say that they don't want to run subs. They want to hear the speakers. They don't run room correction. They want to experience the speakers, how they are, and this, that, and the other. To me, it seems like it's your what is it? What is it? You're paddling upstream. I think depending on how your room is. Like, wouldn't you want something room correction wise to help? It all depends, of course. If your room is a shit show.
I think some of those guys, I mean, I guess I classify them as purist. You know, they don't want to introduce DSP. They don't want to add a subwoofer to enhance the bass. They believe the speakers should take care of that for them. And I'm just of the opinion, I think every system can benefit from a subwoofer, whether it's 2-channel or home theater. And it just takes a load off the speakers. They handle all the lower frequency, even though if you're not digging down super, super deep, I think you still benefit from having a dedicated subwoofer, even in a 2-channel setup. So,
I should clarify. I'm sorry. I was only addressing the sentence. I didn't catch the part about the no subs. No. So that I believe that's accurate, but I was just saying that from what I see, I don't know that I would say home theater guys have better rigs. Like,
not necessarily.
You know, I think it's kind of, it could be closer to even. What I tend to notice is a lot of people that have home theater setups, because a lot of people are more oriented toward the budget end, it seems like with home theater. So they make sacrifices in areas that maybe I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Because they need more equipment.
We have like 15 channels. Speakers.
Yeah, exactly.
That does make sense.
It's rough. Elin, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's, there are those purists out there who just want, big old tower speakers and a really nice, preamp and amp maybe for their hi-fi system. But I mean, just because I'm, I haven't been in the home theater space for like decades or anything, but, the more I'm getting into it, the more I do appreciate room correction, the more I do appreciate a subwoofer, whether it be just very subtle subwoofer presence.
All right, I pointed because Michael loves it when you say woofer, but okay.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
I know, now I'm also conscious of that.
No, that's awesome.
I think it's great. Seriously. No, I think it's a good thing. Subwoofer. See, there you go, Reverend Slim.
Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, so like, I mean, even when I'm just listening to music, I mean, you've got your hi-fi purists who are almost exclusively listening just to music on their hi-fi stereo system because that's what it's made for. When I had the Aperion V8T concert towers in here, I mean, it just blew me away how detailed music came through those things, especially when I had some, when I had the Peachtree amp going through them, that's a 300 watt per channel amp. So like those big old towers can handle that much wattage. And like I could hear, subtle intricacies of acoustic guitars, and vocals sounded dead on center. So like I totally get it, but at the same time, I like just how I can feel it more when there's a subwoofer added to the system. I appreciate the sonic qualities of tower speakers and if they can reach down low, but I do like just that extra little oomph, that extra little body that a subwoofer provides, even when I'm just strictly listening to music. So that's just me personally. But I get it. A lot of music doesn't really need to go below 40 hertz. And it still sounds spectacular. So really you need a subwoofer if you're watching movies and stuff. But yeah, I personally like all of it now that I'm getting into home theater more, and I appreciate it more. I have respect for it more.
I think we can all learn from one another. And so I'm generalizing. So, if you're a 2-channel guy and this is not you, I'm not speaking for everybody, but just generally speaking, what I've found is that the home theater guys are more like into the techy side of it. You have to buy all the stuff. We do room correction, adding subs. Like you have to have subs, right? So that's kind of a requirement for home theater. If you really want a nice home theater, you really need to have subs. Like there's movies and they're going to have deep bass. It's there, right? And then so what ends up happening is because you have subs and you have lots of speakers, now you need something to kind of manage all those things, right? To try to do all that without any DSP is very difficult, right? I'm sure you probably could, maybe, I don't know, but you're going to have some issues that are going to be difficult to address with regards to how do you blend the sub with the mains. And it's not just two, you got to blend it with all the speakers, So it's that, a lot of times you have different seats, you have multiple seats. So we need to use DSP, right? Whereas sometimes what I find with the 2-channel guys, they, if they spend a lot on it, they also spend a lot on room treatment. And so that's the other part. So they may try to do it in a physical way. They're gonna angle that speaker perfectly, right? They're gonna mess with that. They're gonna move their seat like half an inch.
So they're gonna the speakers in halfway into the room, and then the best part, there's only going to be one seat.
Yes,
one seat, right? You do all that, and it's just one seat. So is this like your time away from the family? Leave me alone. I'm listening to music, kind of thing, or I don't know. Seems like a lonely life. One chair, that's it.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, they're both trying to arrive at the best possible sound that they can get. It's just that, physical. So basically what I'm saying is, if you could do what they do and use sound treatment, proper positioning, put yourself in the best possible place, put your speakers in the best possible place, then DSP doesn't have to do very much, right? The DSP, well, it still has to do stuff, but it doesn't have to do as much as if you just randomly put stuff everywhere, your room's untreated. So yeah, you need a little bit of both. And they can also learn about DSP, because I've been to an audiophile guy. I went to his office. He had a $100,000 system, and number one, the speakers were switched, so right and left were switched. So I was like, yeah, we got to fix that real quick, and then there was a big old null, right? And he had all this like room treatment, like bass traps, all this, and all we needed to do, just because I had a mic, I could easily tell that if we just move the seat, his listening position, 1.5 feet forward, he's no longer in the null. Wow, you have all this bass back, right? So it's just a little bit of both, right? We can learn from one another. I don't think it's one or the other. Anyway, that's my take. Yeah.
And then there's that thing that I know Aaron's here, so I can mention it. Half of these guys that are audiophiles don't really know what they're hearing. So like they're just buying it to buy it, and it's a status symbol. It's like, I spent $50,000, $60,000 on a pair of what is it, B&W Diamond, whatever, 500s. I don't know what the model is, but like, and when you go like Joe, when we were at the show in what is it, Long Beach or whatever, and we were showing at the show, like some of these speakers, man, that they're what, $10,000, $20,000. I'm like, these things sound so awful.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're actually trying to sell these? I'm like, God, I hope nobody's buying these things. And so, you know, half of it is like, you know, the turntable that levitates the record. Did you see that at the show?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right, cool, dude.
That's crazy.
Everybody need it. So
yeah. So yeah, I think, like I'm saying, we could all learn from one another. Doesn't have to be one or the other. You know, of course, they buy the expensive speakers. They only have to buy 2. So a lot of times they'll buy the most expensive speakers they can afford. That's usually our recommendation too, right? Buy the best speakers you can afford, but it's different when you have to buy 2 versus when you have to buy,
true.
you know, 16.
11.
And the amplification for all of them, and the processing, and everything kind of goes up exponentially. But in the same token, a lot of the 2-channel guys that are really serious about it, they spend equally as much. They just spend it on less equipment and just higher end equipment.
Yeah. I mean, those even
Cables.
interconnects, right?
Mm-hmm. The risers are expensive.
Well, man, I was just saying, like, even like XLRs, right? And you got to multiply that by however many speakers you are. So
so my pre-pro, right? I have 11 XLRs, and if I'm buying fancy ones, even the cheaper ones that are like $30, $40,
20, 30, 40. Yeah, that adds up.
decent quality, is like $400.
Yeah,
right.
adds up. Absolutely.
So yeah, but then at the same time, like, you know, I think what Joe is saying is great. You know, buy speakers that start off good and can EQ well for home theater, and then you'll pretty much have a decent experience. I mean, I had those Martin Logan towers, and then once Joe did whatever magic beans with the subwoofer, I was like, oh, I can get rid of these towers and go to smaller speakers.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is it's not easy, right? So if you're a 2-channel guy and then you say, okay, let's try out this DSP thing. Let's see what a mini DSP can do. And you can go in, you're like, this is kind of hard, right? It's not that straightforward. It's not like, oh, you just plug it in and then there's nothing to physically move around. It's all on the computer, right? Like, what do I do now, right? So it's difficult, and I can imagine that maybe some of them had bad experiences with subs. Maybe they had a sub that didn't integrate well. Maybe they had a sub that was very boomy, and that doesn't sound good. I wouldn't like that either. And I think if you're a true audio guy, doesn't matter if it's 2-channel, home theater, you're gonna appreciate good sound. Whether it's a 2-channel system that sounds really good, you're gonna say, man, that sounds really good. And if that 2-channel guy comes to your home theater and it's set up well, man, that's pretty good, right? So I don't think we're gonna disagree so much on what awesome sound is, you know. Anyway,
I'll disagree. You're wrong, Joe. You're wrong.
Idiot.
Do I need to change my name to Fresh Hater D?
yes.
Nice.
It kind of reminds me of this the question you had, Elin. You were asking about the integration of your, was it height speakers or what was it? Rear surrounds? Yeah, what was your question again about crossover?
Just because there's a lot of information out there on what your crossover should be for height speakers. You know, THX standard is 80, but a lot of people do 120. Some people do 150. Some people do 180. And they say it's, you know, ridiculous to have anything below 180 or else it'll interfere with the bed layer. So I was just curious what all your thoughts on that, or what you're currently running, because I have yet to do some actual tests on crossovers for height speakers now that I have this shed theater. But yeah, before I do those tests, I wanted to get your take on it too.
Yeah, so you know what? Let's take it to Aaron. I know he's not into, you know, height speakers at all, but how about in car audio?
No.
What is the recommended crossover? I mean, you may have different size speakers, right? So you have subs, but you have all different, let's say you have front speakers, different size, right?
Yeah.
Rear speaker, you know, you may have just various speakers of different sizes. How do you integrate those with a sub? Because I think that's kind of the same question to me.
Right. So yeah, I've actually got a video on that I made a couple of years ago, but a lot of people in car audio, they'll try to cross over their subwoofer low. So meaning like what most people do is they try to cross their mid bass, which are usually in the front doors or in the kick panels or something like that. they'll try to cross them over at like 50 hertz or something because they want to get bass up front. So they think since the mid bass is physically up front, then that's going to give you the more sound, like you actually have bass up front. Problem is, if you mess around with home audio or car audio enough, you know that the way that speakers interact with not just the room, but even with each other can create like cancellation modes, things like that. And because of that, what typically happens, thanks to the car audio and always having the left side mid bass with a null around like 70 hertz, that creates a sound like it sounds like everything is going straight to that mid bass on the left side. So even though you cross over your woofers down at like 50 hertz, it still sounds like the bass is coming from behind you because of the null. So what I suggest people do is to not cross over the subwoofer and the mid bass that low, just cross them at like 80, cross them above where that null is on the near side, and then use your subwoofer, make sure you get the phase aligned correctly with the mid bass up front to fill in that null. And that's kind of like distributed modes, right? Like it's like subwoofers. If you have multiple subwoofers, you're supposed to space them out so you can distribute the bass evenly, but also to fill in the nulls and the peaks so they kind of counteract each other. If you have one subwoofer and you put it in this position over here, then it's going to sound different if you move it to somewhere else because of how it interacts with the room. And then when you add a second subwoofer, you can offset, that sound from where that subwoofer is. And just playing with placement between subwoofers can change the sound at your seat. And the same principles apply to car audio. So I would say 80 hertz, no lower than 70 hertz subwoofer crossover point for car audio. If you're doing lower than that, you're probably like 95% confidence that you're doing that wrong. And you could get better results if you crossed over 70 or 80 hertz. So.
Yeah. So it's interesting that a lot of what you said is transferable to home audio.
Right.
So 80 hertz, that's what I would probably recommend as a general starting point. 80 hertz is a good starting point. Of course, you can mess with your system and try to figure that out. But definitely, you also said phase aligned, right? So you want to phase align everything, right. Meaning that all of the speakers, when they cross over, that they sum together.
They sum together, yeah.
You don't want them fighting each other at any point. And it becomes difficult when you have so many speakers. So time aligning is pretty easy, right? It's different. So time aligning, making sure all the speakers play at your main listening position at the exact same time. Okay, we can do that, right? Yeah. Sub included, a little bit harder because the waves, you can't do it with a typical measurement as accurately as high frequencies, right? But it does a pretty good job of trying to time align that. But then depends on your room correction. Not all room correction does phase alignment all the way across, right? So that's the issues, because let's say if you phase align to, whatever, 2 speakers, it doesn't mean that they're exactly phase aligned to all your other speakers. They could be out of phase with some other speakers and in phase with your front speakers. And that's going to lead to some issues because it can't fix both if it can't change the phase, right? But something like Dirac, and that's why I think it does such a great job, is it can align the phase of all the speakers and then combine that with the sub. Now you have a very cohesive sound. So to simplify things, it's just you got to be phase aligned, right? Because it doesn't matter what crossover, if they're fighting each other, that's never a good thing. And then the other thing is, what I prefer to do is I prefer to have my crossover at around the same point. Because if you think about something panning around, right? It's panning around through all your speakers. And let's say all of them are set to 80 hertz, but then you have small height speakers and it has to be crossed over 120, right? So it's 80 hertz, right? And then so basically, if you're panning something that is 81 hertz, right? You pan it around, okay, it doesn't need to use the sub, theoretically. Of course it does, but you know what I mean? Let's say you pan it around, but when it gets to those height speakers, it does need to use a sub. So all of a sudden, it goes from not playing to the subs playing. Is that noticeable? Kinda. Is it supposed to be noticeable? Theoretically, it shouldn't. Right? Theoretically, you should never be able to notice a difference. But I'll tell you right now, if you have a near field sub like me, like it's next to the couch, all of a sudden, like it's shake. Okay, I noticed that.
Right? That makes sense.
It's the difference. So I'd rather all of the speakers be crossover at the same point. That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah, I think 80 hertz is a good place to start, but you also have to do phase alignment. You have to do time alignment, level matching, all the right things.
If only there was a way we could just put some stuff in those high channels and see. Reverend Slim says Atmos heights are technically full range. Where you cross them over depends on the capability of the speakers and how it integrates. And I remember Joe was telling me about this discussion that Reverend Slim said he needs to change out his high channels and to get something bigger.
Yeah, because he's starting to localize, right? So anytime I was showing him a demo, right? I made some Atmos demo, and I showed him, and it's supposed to be something happening over here. But because his speakers back there are small, it activates a sub that's somewhere in the front, right? And so when it happens, he kind of can tell because it's at around, I think maybe 110, 120, not, you start getting to the point where you can start localizing higher up in frequency. And so it's high up. And so he can hear it. He's like, it's supposed to be over here, but I can hear the sub. So that could be an integration thing too, right? If they're not well integrated, you will be able to localize it more, right? If there's a slight time delay, phase alignment issue, whatever. So it depends. But Aaron, do you think that it would be possible though? Let's say as high as 120 without anything rattling. Let's pretend there's nothing rattling in the room, making it obvious. Yeah. 120, would you be able to seamlessly blend a speaker to a sub and not be able to tell it's from the sub at 120?
Yeah. I mean, assuming that the sub will do it. Yeah. Well, and what I mean by that is like some sub, if you have like huge subwoofers and they have high inductance, that just means they start rolling off. It's kind of like an internal low pass filter. So sometimes you'll run into that with like large 15s, huge magnets, a lot of throw to them, a lot of excursion to them. 15s, 18s, usually like below 15, I would say you're probably going to be okay anyway. But then the other thing is just like any other speaker design, where you're trying to match the radiation pattern of a tweeter to that of a mid-range, that still applies with a subwoofer to a bookshelf speaker. So you don't want to get any further apart than about a half a wavelength, definitely not any more than a half a wavelength of wherever you would want to be crossing over at. So if you say 100 hertz, that's, I can't even do the math in my head. 100 hertz, is that 13 inches or so? 13, I don't know. I'd have to do the math in my head, but I'm just going to make up numbers. So for example, let's say 100 hertz is, no, I'm going to do this real math in real time. Because somebody's going to say, oh, you didn't do it right. And I was like, oh my God.
Only you would put yourself on the spot. Anytime it's math related, I'm like,
135 inches, let's say it's divided by 2, so that's 67 inches. So if you crossed over at 100 hertz, assuming that you crossed over everything, alignment, phase alignment is all good, you could theoretically place the subwoofer 67.5 inches away from your main speakers. Now, more ideally, it would be no further than 33.75. So that's speed of sound divided by 100 hertz divided by 4. So it's a quarter wavelength. But if you wanted to go up to, let's say 200 hertz, right? Because that's kind of like if you ran a three-way, if you built a custom design three-way speaker and your subwoofer with your mid bass driver would play 20 hertz to 200 hertz, you don't want the distance between the center of that mid bass driver to be any further than about 17 inches or so than the center of your mid-range driver. So the distance between the center to center of mid-range driver to subwoofer driver or mid bass driver at 200 hertz would be about 17 inches for a quarter wavelength. So you don't want those drivers to be any further apart. Otherwise, you get cone filtering, which just means that the radiation patterns are different enough where you can get off-axis cancellation and off-axis addition. And it basically just means that like as you go away from the speaker to the side, the reflections that are sent out into the room to the side are going to be very frequency dependent and angle dependent on how it sounds in your seated position. So basically, like if you're talking into a room and I'm looking dead at you and then you step off to the side, well, I'm pretty much going to sound the same no matter what, because I'm one point source. But if I've got my voice and another voice of me overlapping, but I'm far enough away, then as you start moving off to the side, you start hearing different sounds, and I no longer sound like one coherent source. And that's kind of it. So Yes, you could go 120 hertz. It's not a problem. You can go 200 hertz, but you've got to be mindful of how far is that subwoofer from the mains. And you can get away with this in home theater and car audio as well, because if you're crossing over like 80 hertz, we'll just do the math again. Quarter wavelength for 80 hertz is 42 inches. A half wavelength is going to be what, 84 inches, something like that. So that's really long. That's how many feet is that? That's 7 feet. So I mean, you could theoretically have your speakers 3 to 7 feet apart, and you're going to be fine at 80 hertz. But the higher frequency you go, the closer it gets.
And everything. Jeez. I know Elon last time you're like, I can't believe this dude's like he's getting crazy over here. He's like, hey. He messaged me like, hey, this Aaron, I didn't know he knew all this. Yeah,
everybody else is like, I don't care.
There. That's our dude right there. Yeah.
Oh, man, that was fascinating. It's cool to see the wheels spin.
He got down right there.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed though is a lot of times with home theater subwoofers, in a just practically speaking, once they get past depending on the size of the sub, 150 is pushing it. Once you start getting in that range, you start hearing some bad noises from that sub, right? Like some ringing. It just sounds like you hit like breakup modes, so it just doesn't sound very good for some reason. And I think that's why a lot of them, just by default, they don't play any sounds below 150. Just by default, you can make it if you crank it all the way up, but it's not going to sound good. Have you noticed that either? Has anybody noticed, like, if you let a sub play some of the higher frequencies?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever let mine go 150.
No.
Do you know that noise that it makes? That ringing noise?
Above 100, because you end up hearing where the sub is in your room.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that when I test some subwoofers, it's like the resonance. Like a lot of times what you'll find is you'll have a port resonance. So if you look at like mine or James Larson's frequency response, when we test like monolith or SVS, and we'll test it ported, and then we'll test it, like we'll seal it up, and you can see a clear resonance that's not there when you seal it up. And it's usually like, I mean, it depends on the size of the woofer, the enclosure, stuff like that. But let's say typically for like a 15-inch, it's going to be around 200 hertz or so. Like that's kind of in that ballpark. Yeah. So certainly I can understand what Joe's saying. And on one of those cheap mono price subwoofers, like the $99 one, I had an issue with it at like 100 hertz. Like I even made it in video. I started ramping up the signal generator, and I was like, y'all listen to this. And you're trying to capture like a resonance on a subwoofer, but I think it kind of enough people could kind of figure out what I was talking about. But it was the plate amp. Something was rattling on the plate amp. So I took it apart and tried to check it out and couldn't figure out what it was, but something was rattling on that. So that's a case where you could run into something, like you can easily, and that makes it more detectable. So then it's not even so much like the sphere of sound. There's a specific resonance in the speaker itself that will draw attention to itself.
Yeah. So hot tip for you guys, anytime you have a speaker, right? And if you're going to be using the banana plugs, make sure that those terminals are screwed down, right? If you've ever made the mistake of having them kind of unscrewed a little bit and you're playing something like, what is that sound? What is it coming from? It's the terminals rattling. But for sure, it all goes along with what Aaron is saying, is you want to make sure to not have resonances either in the speaker itself or in your room. It could be like something rattling over here, right? So if that's happening, you're going to start localizing, because you can hear the higher frequencies from the rattling of whatever it is, your picture frame, whatever it is, right? So hopefully that answers your question, Elon. I know that you were saying that some people are recommending higher frequencies for some reason. I don't understand the point of that. What's the point of the higher?
Well, I think it kind of goes with just how you mix music. Like in order to mix music, because you've got the bass, you've got the guitar, you've got or maybe a lead guitar and an acoustic or rhythm guitar, and then you've got, I don't know, piano on top of that and violins and all those things happening at once. Like in order to make those sound cohesive and not completely muddy, especially around like 200 to 700 hertz, you've got to do a lot of frequency carving in order for those to actually fit like a puzzle piece and sound good together playing at the same time. So I kind of get how you might not want your height channels to be like less than 120 hertz, just because those hertz from 120 to 80 or 60 or whatever might kind of interfere and get muddy with the bed layer speakers. So I can kind of see the how some people might consider that when doing the crossovers for the high frequency or for the high channels.
Yeah, well, I mean,
go ahead,
with those upward firing Atmos ones, they like Klipsch wouldn't tell you what the frequency response was on those things because they actually had to do something weird to make that bounce happen, and they would say to set the crossover to 120. So like those numbers 120, 150, those are because of some of those Atmos speakers, and a lot of people are like, oh well, if it's an Atmos speaker, you know, it doesn't have to be one of those bouncy ones, and you know, the answer to that is no. It can be a bookshelf speaker, it can be in-ceiling speaker, and based on how that speaker performs is where you would want to put your crossover point. You know, I have some, when I made the switch from the Klipsch ones to the SVS, I went down to 100, and then when I put the Focal ones up there I have now, I went to 80, and then in the studio, that's in the living room. In the studio, since I have the same, all speakers are exactly the same. It works with that Pioneer where I can only set one crossover point, so they're all set to 80. And those are those mono price THX.
Oh yeah, these are awesome. So here's the thing, Elon, I think that the carving, all that, is supposed to be done on the production side, right? So they need to separate out their sounds. Your speakers are supposed to be, they mix for full range a lot of times. If they're mixing for theatrical mix, they're assuming that, you know, all the speakers can play all the sounds, right? So I don't think that they're mentally thinking, like, okay, these are going to be in the rears, let's high pass them. No, they just put the sound in there, right? And then let your thing is going to do the bass management. But I don't see any need to go higher than what the speaker can actually do, right? Like if the speaker can do 80 comfortably, yeah, why not 80, right? There are other reasons to do it, but I don't think it would be for that, to try to carve out the sounds, because realistically, if you think about it, you want everything to be cohesive. You shouldn't be able to hide speakers now, right? It's preferable to not be able to tell, when something's in the hide speakers,
right.
necessarily,
Yeah, I remember something like FOMO was saying something about, oh well, they don't mix the sound, they cross it over when they're mixing them. No, the sound is not crossed over in the production phase. It's done by your receiver. And then that brings into question, like, are you getting the same experience? Is the receiver doing a good job? That's a $500 receiver or a $3,000 processor? Do we know that? Can we even quantify that? I mean, I hope it would be better. Actually, I hope it would be exactly the same. I hope for everyone, it would just be exactly the same. You're getting the same crossover performance, I guess, at a $500 level or $600 level as you would with the $3,000 level. So, diving into all this just makes me ask more fucking questions, which means there's just too many things to answer. And, like, I don't consider myself to be any kind of like expert, but I know what I'm hearing. And I just hope that everyone could have a great experience.
Yeah.
No matter what price point or level that they're at.
Yeah.
So Michael, what are your crossovers set at right now?
Man, it's been so long since I've been looking.
Dude, I know what Michael's crossovers are. They're at 0 hertz. Those things are full range. Especially the subs.
He crosses over at 0, right? He goes to the negative.
His subs are just decoration.
Yeah, I know my LCRs, they're crossed over at 60, but I don't remember what my heights are. They're probably 80. So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, basically once I ran Odyssey, well, whenever I got the 7706, and I haven't rerun it, since then. So
yeah, man. Let me share something real quick. I'll show you what I've been up to for the past couple weeks. Oh my goodness, it's nuts. And I shared it.
You don't want to know.
I shared it with the group, and Aaron's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I'm like,
"Yeah." I literally said, "I don't even know what you're saying." I said, "Honestly, I really don't know what you just said."
Well, if you don't,
I wasn't even trying to be smart aleck.
I figure if you don't understand, I don't know who's gonna understand. Considering I read it twice.
And, I read it twice. I was like, huh? Like I quit. I give up.
So I've been messing with computer audio, right? So on a computer, it's kind of cool because you have a bunch of tools, to mess with the sound that is kind of unlimited, right? Compared to like we're talking about Oro 3D upmixer, Dolby upmixer. I just made my own upmixer, right? You can do that sort of thing. You can start routing sounds different ways. And so I did that. I made an upmixer that can go from 2 channels to 7.1.4. And I think it sounds better than Oro. I think it sounds better than these other ones. Of course, I have to use my processing power. Maybe, they have limitations, right? I can just use as much power as I want.
Oh, because you're using a computer to do it.
Yeah. The computer's doing the processing. It could do it in real time too. And so it's pretty crazy. Like, I guess I could show you some stuff. So I made an upmixer. What else did I do? I did the remapping. Remember last week we were talking about remapping for Trinov? I just kind of recreated that. What else did I do? Remapping.
We're talking about the tools that are already in your MacBook.
A lot are built in. Some you have to download, right? Sometimes you might have to download some VSTs, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of show you. I may even do like a video about this sometime. But let me share my video here.
Is it going to be all the wires?
Oh no, it's this one. So this is one where you see the incoming signal here, right? Is just a 2-channel signal. But then, of course, when I upmix it, same exact track, but it's using all the channels, and I'm steering the sound in a logical way. I'm not just saying, just
put this over there, put that over. Dog barking goes at the voice of God. All that.
No, like it's like I had to do some stuff with I had to introduce some comb filtering, right, to make sure that they don't do like stuff unintentionally. I may have to add some delays so that basically I can make it sound like I can play a stereo track, right? So let me rewind. I made a Dolby Atmos demo, right? Because Chana's and I have been talking, and is like, yeah, I'll try it out, right? I made a demo that's 7.1.4, but if I play it on stereo, right, in 2.0 with the upmixer, I can make the sounds play where I intended them to play. So it's kind of crazy how I did that. And here's another thing real quick.
Are you just talking about a music track?
I'm talking about this works globally. So any sound that comes out of my computer, right, was a little ding, it'll play through this upmixer.
Right. Okay.
I've been going crazy, guys. I mean, I've been in this office seriously like almost like 2 weeks or something, spending so much time on this stuff just because it's fun. And because he's only got the trial versions because he didn't want to pay for any of the shit. So he's got I got a 2-week trial. So he's doing all these all-nighters.
That's right, man. Make your video and you're finished.
I'm okay. Here's another thing I did here. So we're talking about Trinov remapping, right? So this is something that I was working on here. So here, zooming in here. So right here, I have a 5.1.2 system in this studio. It's too small for me to put rear surrounds, right? And the two heights are easier, right? And I have them up front, so that's not ideal, right? So you can kind of see where they're placed. These colors here, what these represent are the sound fields, right? And this is what we were talking about. I can do that demo that I think Trinov does, where they move the sound field. So center speaker, okay, left, center, right, left surround, right surround, and then heights, right? So here, this orange is the center channel. This is the left channel. This is the right channel. Now you can tell 30 degrees where it's supposed to be. My speakers are not at 30 degrees. They're at 45, right? So they're not in the perfect place. But it's interesting because I can do this. Check this out. I can rotate the sound field around. And if I just move my chair and I sit sideways, like the center still sounds there, right? And if I turn it even more, all the way 180 degrees,
you
like
turn
this,
around.
If I turn around, I can just turn around here, and I don't have a center speaker back there, but through DSP, through all this trickery, it sounds like like there's a center here. Now not as good, right? Not as good as here because I actually have a center. And so this made me realize that if I want the center to sound solid, it's always better to have it at a speaker, right? So this is a lesson kind of just in general. You know, when people say, oh, you can matrix sounds, it's still the speaker is the best place to put a sound, right? If you have the choice between putting it at a speaker or between,
Right.
At a speaker is always best, right? So anyway, that's that. Let me see.
I know, like it's been every time I'm on the phone with Joe, my wife's like, all right, I'm gonna do something for an hour. Because she knows like, we're just gonna get caught up in like some shit. He's like, dude, I was laying in bed and I was thinking about, I was like, yo, whoa, time out. Let's not get into what you were thinking about in bed. No, but it's funny because I'll say the same thing. I'll be like, dude, last night in bed at like 2 a.m. I thought about this thing and like we should make it,
So here I'm showing moving the sound stage in
like beyond the
towards you or
and,
further away from you, right? So ideal would be here, but if your speakers are somewhere else, this can kind of accommodate. Let's see what else. Yeah, you can move that around. And then again, so this is changing the kind of dispersion characteristics. So in the model, so you can tell like, about how much coverage each speaker has, right? Horizontally and vertically. So horizontal and then vertically too. So anyway, that's it. That's what I've been working on. And it sounds pretty crazy in here to the point where my system is tuned up and calibrated so crazy in here that I can binauralize through the speakers. And that's really difficult. Meaning I can play binaural content. I don't have any headphones on. I'm just sitting here and it doesn't sound like it's at my head. Like when you listen to headphones, it sounds like, something's right here, but it sounds like it's about this far, right? Right around your head versus on most speaker systems. If you listen to something binaural, right? Like that barbershop one, when he goes, I'm going to go towards your right ear. It's going to sound like like your head's the size of your room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, lots of stuff that I've been figuring out that I would love to share with you guys. I know this is very technical stuff a lot of times, but hopefully,
It's deep, man, but that's good.
Yeah, hopefully I can provide something where it's just the answer, right? Like if you don't care how it works, you don't have to care. It just works and it does what it says it's going to do. Hopefully I can provide something like that. Anyway, that's it.
So have you like tested out watching, I don't know, just like streaming something off of some streaming
mercy.
service like
Carson,
Disney
you're not
Plus,
right.
like a movie or something?
Have I? Yeah, I've tried all different types of content on here. Yeah, 2-channel content, 7.1.4 content, 5.1 content, just basic YouTube videos. A lot of times like a mono source will show all the flaws, right?
Right.
Like if there's some timing issues, delay issues, you put a mono signal and it's like, what's going on? It should sound like one single sound. So yeah, listening to test tones, you wouldn't believe how much time I've spent listening to pink noise and pulses and stuff like that. So you can
and my voice too.
And Chana's voice,
Front left, front right.
Yep. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. But I think how it's useful to you guys and to our audience is that I did find out why I think a lot of the Atmos stuff, and we've mentioned it before, why a lot of times it doesn't sound as realistic as it could sound, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot has to do with just the fact that if you move an object from one thing to another, right? When it's at the speaker itself, that's a physical thing. Your speaker is a physical thing in the room, which means that physical thing has some reflections, reverberations when that object's at your speaker, right? When it goes to the other speaker, it's at that speaker and you can hear the reflections. Now, when it's between the two, it's not actually at a speaker at all. So there's no reflections, no nothing, right? And I think that's what happens when something pans around, boom, it hits a speaker. Okay, I could tell. Boom, it's at the speaker. But when it's in between, it doesn't have that reflection anymore, right? And so I think that's an area where things can be improved. And so
the bottom line is,
I'm aiming to improve that.
If you guys want to have like a good like movement, a sensation of movement in your room, you got to get up and walk with that speaker. Okay, you got to walk the speaker
That makes
over,
sense.
walk the speaker over here, walk the speaker to get the proper
Easy-
reflection.
Okay, Easy
Yeah.
HD Tech says I'm so lost right now. Okay, so let me explain this, right?
Do the car. Do
The car thing. Okay. Dude. All right. So I was laying in bed. Right. I was laying in bed, and so there's a main street, like near the house, right? And behind my head, there's a big window, right? And so I can hear the cars pass by, but I'm laying down. So of course that's overhead, right? If I'm laying down, the window's back here, cars are passing, and I was like just laying there. I'm like, hold up a second. I can tell exactly where those cars are, right? You know, I mean, we always talk about how our, spatial resolution is terrible, over our head. And I'm like, how come I can tell exactly the size of that car, right? By the sound, and I know what direction's going. I know when the car's going this way, that way, right? And that's through a window, right? How am I able to precisely tell where that is? And I think what it is because that's an actual physical object, right? When it
That's like
moves,
your speaker. That's
Right.
your-
Yeah, that's the speaker. Each car is the speaker. Right.
yes.
The
But-
Doppler effect is
Yeah.
right.
The thing is, your speakers don't move, right? The claim is like, oh, we can make virtual objects move. It'd be better if your speaker moved, but imagine that trying to walk into a room and your speakers are flying around. That's not good. So
That would hurt.
So yeah, so that would be the best though, right? If the sound was dedicated to this one speaker and then the speaker moved, right?
Yeah, that way you'll get all the reflections and everything would happen normally because the sound is still at that source throughout the entire movement. Does that make sense?
And so here's what I realized though, right? Is it wasn't necessarily the car itself that I was able to place because it was going through a wall, going through a window, right? It was more the sound hitting that window or location on that window, and then the reverberation off all the walls. And I was listening to my room and the effect of the sound on the room, and that told me where the object was, right? So an object outside the room, I had to listen to the room to tell me where the object is.
Meaning Joe's bedroom is now the speaker.
Yes. My bedroom was kind of like the speakers, right?
Dude, you sure you haven't been eating those edibles, bro, before dinner?
I know it sounds like it, right?
Before bedtime, because I mean,
so I think Joe's been smoking them plants on this speaker. I don't smoke. I used to, but what you call it? Basically, it's different when the sound is the object's inside your room, right? Because the object, whatever the thing is making the sound, but then it's still, your room is still telling you a lot about where that sound is. And that's the issue. When you place a virtual object, in this space, does it react with your room? I mean, that's something we have to figure out.
So
if you want it to sound real, it should.
So so the truth is that you can never truly duplicate real life sounds, but the surround sound systems do a good job of tricking your ears. Is that really what the home theater is trying to do? Trick your ears to thinking you're in a different place?
I would hope. I would hope that we're fully tricked, right? I would love to be extremely fooled, right?
It's some sort of VR kind of deal, right?
Yeah, where you're like, whoa, where was I? That was crazy. It's not there yet, It's not there yet, but I think we can make some improvements so that it does sound more realistic. I do have recommendations, and I have some tests that I've been running, and maybe in the future, right, Jonna? Maybe we'll have some demos that they can check out to see if it's the most realistic sound, right?
Yeah. I honestly, Elon, I got to talk to you, bro. I gotta send you some shit so you can listen to.
Okay.
I might have to drop an NDA.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Just in case, because I know like there's a lot of people hating on me right now. So can't divulge too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. But I know I saw your video, and you said that you like the cube format for Atmos and setting up your high channels in that fashion as opposed to the sphere. So
yeah. And that's the other thing about this that thing that I was showing you guys is I can change the sound, right? I can replicate different sounds. So this is a square format, right? You can see the speakers are in a square format, and this is the way, like a dome shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Atmos is more set up for this dome shape where, the top, very top of the dome, right? The very top of the, do I have any better things? The very top of the dome is nothing left and nothing right. It's like in the center, right? Once you move up towards the top, right, you don't have left and right. It's just 90 degrees up. So that's different from this, right? That's different from this when you can pan directly up from one speaker to the other, right? And it doesn't move. So if this is left, right? This is left here. When you move straight up, it doesn't move towards the center versus over here is what we're trying to show you before. When you think you're moving straight up, it's actually moving up and towards you because it's round. And so your speakers in an Atmos setup are more round shaped, right? And so we can't undo that. You can't undo the fact that it's placed that way. And so when something moves up, it's going to sound like it comes up and towards you. It's just how it goes, So
it seems like there's probably got to be like some sort of marriage between binaural sound and just having a bunch of speakers. Because I remember, I honestly like reached out to this guy who kept commenting on some of my real old videos, just talking about Atmos and stuff. He's like, "Hey, you're never gonna get the truest form of Atmos unless you check these."
Oh, is this what you were telling me about? This guy? Is that the same guy?
I think so. It's like some $16,000 headphone system.
Wow.
Oh, the Smith Realizer or something like that?
Something like that. He's like, it's the most unreal Atmos experience you've ever heard because it is the truest form of binaural hearing, or a binaural source that you can ever experience. Because I mean, that's really all it is we're just kind of virtually putting ourselves in the middle of something, but at the same time we only have two ears, but our brains are able to recognize sounds above us, to the side of us, behind us, in front of us. So like technically, shouldn't Atmos be the best just if you're listening to headphones because we only have two ears? Or should the greatest Atmos setup be just two speakers right next to our ears, and yet there's some sort of DSP happening that makes it sound like it's coming up front or above or behind?
You're kind of on the right track, I think. I think actually binaural is superior because you can internalize, right? Then you can actually make something come towards you and away from you.
Exactly.
Right now, I'm limited to making the sound at the outside of that dome, right? I don't care what anybody tells you. If they say, "Oh, you can make it come inside," yeah, try it on your system and see. If in Chana's demos, when he pans the thing across, the object across, does it sound like it's going through your head, right? Or does it sound like it's at that speaker and then all of a sudden
it's a little weird. But it is an interesting way to like just to see what would happen. And then like half of this shit, like I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I mean, I know what I'm doing. I just like I don't know what it's going to sound like.
The outcome, like
yeah, exactly. So like when we say like when I have like some pink noise or whatever in the center channel, I'm like, oh, let's just go directly straight back through the room. What does that sound like? And I've done, you should see this crazy stuff I came up with in bed the other night. And like the best part about binaural is like, I'm doing this on my laptop while my wife is asleep next to me. It's like 2 a.m. I'm like, oh, what if I make the sound go from here to here, here to there to there, and I just try it. I'm like, okay, it's doing it in the render. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to like try this out on my system tomorrow when everybody's awake and I don't wake anybody up. And I usually try it on both systems. So like the living room system has the problems, there's a lot of room problems, and it has the height channels on ceiling, half the distance from the front, and then the studio has more of a cube shape. So I tried on both to see like what happens. Okay, people with in-ceiling speakers are going to experience what I'm hearing in my living room. People, with high channels are going to experience what I'm, hearing in the studio. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot. I tell you, like, I'll just be sitting like, what? I literally just, since I have access to this, just thinking of like, what weird shit can I do with these little, moving these, things around. And what I noticed is that if I'm trying to have a sound like, let's say right here next to me, it doesn't, it's just, it's a little weird. It's not like it's going to be like right here, like, hey, do you need a drink? What's going on? Like it sounds better when everything is at the perimeter or at or close to a speaker. As soon as you try to do all these like weird diagonals, shapes and stuff like that with the sounds, it gets like
here's a demo I did because Paul asked for it, right? He said, I want a fly sound or some kind of sound and make it go all around you. He wanted to say, in one place, but I thought it would be a better demo. So I sent him this, right? So I have, the group of guys who are a lot of times they're mostly our patrons. They'll ask for something and yeah, we can try that out, right? So look at the thing's going right next to the head in here, right? Supposedly, right? So when it goes around the perimeter, that sounds pretty real. Sounds like the flies all around your wall, right?
Yeah.
But the moment it's supposed to sound like it's right here above you, it doesn't sound like it's above you.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I keep trying to tell people. It's not currently possible. Now, if you put on headphones, that will sound like that.
The binaural version is definitely a lot better when their sounds are like kind of like sounds are like moving around you. But like in a theater or in your home theater, it's all right. And like, I showed Joe what I did with some of my mixes, and he's just like, oh, yeah, that's brilliant. Like the way I move the sound around to make it sound good and cohesive, I actually don't move anything around. I don't move that little ball that Joe's got on the screen. I don't move that around at all.
You don't have to.
I cut up the sound and put little bits of sound around the room in different speakers. And the fact that it's going so fast in like 16 notes, like it feels like the sound is being moved around you. But in reality, I'm not moving it that way. I'm moving it a different way, and I'm putting it where every speaker is where each speaker is, because I know it's going to sound the best in that location. And the beauty of the whole thing is, and it's just kind of like a VR trick, your brain fills in the gaps.
It's just like frames, right? Yeah. Like 24 frames. Okay, it doesn't look like 24 frames. It looks like just motion.
Yeah, exactly. Like animation and stuff.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool trick that I figured out on how to make the movement sound more realistic without having to, it's a bit more work than just taking one track and then putting in the metadata to move it around. I have to make now, if I want one sound to come out of all 11 speakers, I have to make 11 tracks, chop it up, move things around. It takes, like, when I say like it took me 2 hours to make one effect, that's what I was doing,
So real quick, All Tech Geek says, if I can share the demo. I don't know if you want this demo, to be honest. It's called Annoying Fly for a reason.
It's pretty annoying.
I don't want to hear this thing anymore. I'm done with that.
I think you can share it with the patrons.
Yeah. You know what we can do? I can share it with the patrons, and then Chana, what's your link? I can send it to you, and if you want to share it with those folks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have a link where people can sign up and you can send them stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
However you want to do it. But anyway, that's what I've been up to. That's the kind of I felt like I had to share it. Otherwise, I would feel like the crazy guy, right? Because I've been spending so much time doing this, and for what reason?
I mean, let's all be real. You still are the crazy guy. Let's sugarcoat it.
I'm not as crazy as Aaron, so.
Oh, that guy,
I don't know.
I don't know. On that big dome on that bicycle, man, I'd be afraid to crack it.
Right.
Man, I haven't done much experimenting with this, but I'm actually wanting to now, because just the other day I was watching something when my girls were home and they were doing their homework, whatever. I was just having a bite to eat, and I wanted to watch something on TV, but it had some adult language. So I've got a Apple TV 4K, so I popped in my AirPods Pro that have spatial sound, and it was such a trip because I'm just watching this documentary, right? And I kept asking my girls, like, you can't hear this, right? Because even though the AirPods are in my ears, it sounds like it's coming from the TV.
I know what you're talking about exactly.
And then when I move my head, it sounds like it's coming from the TV still.
Yes.
So like I have yet to actually watch a movie like in full Dolby Atmos like that, but I'm really curious to know if we are getting almost to that point where all you need is two
Well,
little earbuds.
what's funny is Joe has those headphones and his wife has the headphones, and they were watching a movie together, like the kids were like sleeping or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Joe's wife's like, all right, I'm done watching this. She unplugs it, and then now it's just Joe's headphones, and then he starts moving his head. He's like, wait.
Yeah. So what happens? So on Apple TV, you can pair, two AirPods or whatever, AirPods Pro. There's certain headphones that it works with, right? But if you pair both of them, spatial audio goes away.
Right.
It goes away. So we're listening to some stuff, and then so when she took hers off, I'm like, oh crap, it's playing from the TV speakers now. Like, let's turn it down. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, you mean that's
That's
not from the TV?
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
it only
That's
supports
crazy.
one spatial audio. It only supports one set, at least for now.
Yeah, currently, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want spatial, one pair. So anyway, it was really a trip.
Okay, so think about this. It makes sense because you got two people,
Mhm.
and with spatial, you can move one head, but the other one would hear what you know. What I'm saying.
Oh yeah, it would have to be able to direct to each one separately. Yeah. Imagine you turn your head like, why are you turning your head so much? Stay straight.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, I'm trying to watch the movie. Every time you turn your head, the person's voice like goes over to the side. We don't want that.
Dude,
So that makes sense.
so
Why they
have y'all done with the headphones with that stuff, with the spatialization in there?
What do you mean
That
exactly?
that still freaks. So I was at the gym the other day, and I was watching Home Improvement on Hulu, right? And I had my phone set up on the treadmill, and I was just walking, and then I looked to the side, and I was like, well, that sounded weird. And then I started moving my head around, and I remembered that the spatialization, I guess, was defaulted on. So it's like the center channel, basically the phone, wherever the phone is, that's my center channel. So when I turn this way, the voice is still coming from there instead of following me. Right. And I know that some people like that, but it still sounds so weird to me that I still don't like it. I haven't gotten used to it yet. So I'm curious if anybody else is using, like in the chat, or if you guys have used that with Apple. Mine were Apple AirPods.
Experimented a lot with it, and so what ends up happening is it's a trip. So there's a time delay too, right? So if you turn your head this way, it'll stay that way, but if you keep your head this way, it'll shift it back over this way.
Yeah, true. I've noticed that.
You know what I mean?
I haven't noticed that. I haven't given it a chance to do that, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, after a certain amount of time. So it's not immediately, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to do mixes with them too, because if I listen to Chana's mix and he says, oh, I'm up here, right? If I turn to look at it, now it sounds like it's in front of me. So it does the head tracking.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Crazy
amazing
stuff, man.
Pretty crazy stuff. And real quick, this is related to Aaron just put out a poll on his page. Oh, this was a few days ago, I think. About how much time would you say you analyze the sound of your system rather than just listening to it? And you see my answer, right? 50% plus. But this is my job, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm supposed to figure this stuff out, so you don't have to, hopefully, right? If I'm crazy, it's hopefully I can give you answers about, okay, this is what it does, this is what it doesn't do, so you can just enjoy it.
Yeah.
What'd you guys put? What amount of time would you spend? Would you say? Yeah. So how much time do you spend analyzing your system versus actually listening to it?
Mine's 10.
10%.
Because I set it up, and then the rest of the time I just enjoy it.
You're the Ron Popeil. You set it and forget it, right?
Because I'd rather be enjoying it, you know. I mean, but in all fairness, I think Joe truly enjoys digging into it and trying this and changing this, and that's just never been me.
Yeah.
You know.
Honestly, I'm also with you on that. I'm 10%. The only times when I really need to change something is if the wife can't operate it because the unit is doing something weird. Yeah. And if he keeps on contacting me while I'm doing other work, I'll be like, oh, God damn it. All right, I'll just switch the AVR, which I'm lucky in that I have like 8 AVRs and or processors in the house right now. It's possible. But I mean, if one of you guys spent like $3,000 on one of these things and all of a sudden you're having a HDMI handshake issue with your, direct TV, the big game is on, Sunday football, blah, blah, blah. Like it keeps turning off or keeps switching. Like the Yamaha would just switch inputs out of the blue because the CEC was just working a little too well. And all of a sudden, the Apple TV woke up from being asleep and then boop, switched to the Apple TV or the Roku. So like, yeah, for me, it's like 10% as well. Like, unless I'm really doing a project, or the very first time setting something up, I'll do that for a few days. And then it's just like, it's on autopilot. Like people talk
I'm
about
reviewing something. Of course, I've got to set it up and recalibrate it and everything. But once I'm done, man, I just want to enjoy it and see what it sounds like.
And I like unlike a lot of you guys that have a dedicated space, mine's in the living room, which is also a great thing because that TV, that system is on like 7-8 hours a day probably. So if I'm reviewing speakers, I just set them up there. Boom. People want to talk about speaker burn-in, whatever. I don't care. I'll wait like 2 weeks. I'll let the wife do whatever she watches. Boom. Speakers are burned in. Same thing with the TV and all this nonsense. I'm lucky in that fashion. Those Parasound amplifiers are on almost all the time. So I'm glad I got some good amplification just for that situation. But here's something that I thought was interesting. Leadership push. No wonder Atmos engineers don't all put out great content. It's way too much work. Honestly, it is. Like the amount of time I put into what are those songs? Like 3.5 minutes long. Like, good Lord, if I want to try and make a movie scene, just one scene that's like 5 minutes long, like that's going to take a while. If it's an entire 2 hour and a half movie, like I'm thinking months. And like, if a studio was going to like pay for that, let alone allocate that kind of time, because I'm sure they need everything done on a timeline as far as their release, if they're going to do a digital release or like an actual theater release. So yeah, there's a lot of aspects of getting good Atmos that we have to look at.
Reverend says, when I hear a weakness in my system, I have to fiddle with it. Talking to Joe's made me spend hours in multi-QX. Caused him to move the surrounds. Yeah. So Aaron, what would be your answer to that poll? To your own poll?
A few years ago, it would have been like 50% or more, but not so much anymore. So it's changed. I was just kind of curious I was actually surprised at the numbers that people were putting. I thought a lot of people would just say like basically 0%, hardly any of the time, but a lot of people would put more than that. I was surprised.
Yeah, 10%, zero.
Think about the crowd that we're appealing to. I mean, these are enthusiasts. I would expect them to put some effort into their system versus just plug it in, don't do any kind of calibration, don't do any kind of setup.
So I was coming at it more from the perspective of like, once you set it up, set it and forget it, you're done. Right. And I expected a lot of people would be that way, but I found out they're not. And a lot of people are actually like, they still tinker with it. I mean, 25% is a good bit of time, that's an hour for every 4 hours that you're not listening.
Right.
So I just find that interesting, but it's kind of cool. Like I've been doing more polls lately to kind of get an idea of, okay, who's watching my videos, like
it'll help you get an idea of like what content to make too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think I spend a lot of time messing around with the system because number one, I enjoy it, but also I'm hoping that other people don't have to spend that much time, right? They can just enjoy it if I've done the work.
You want to be the guy that's like, hey, try this, and then the people try it and they're like, oh my God, it's so much better.
Well, that's why they ask, right? Hey, how should I do this? I'll be like, dude, I've tried that and I've done all these experiments. Just skip the hassle. I'll tell you the answer. Okay. Yeah. This is the answer. Yeah. So it's very interesting. 10. Let's see. 0% is 10%. So no amount. These people don't spend any time analyzing the system.
Yeah.
10%.
Forget it.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of this, right? So a big portion of this, what?
I mean, that's close to half.
Yeah,
half people are 25% or more. Like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
I did not expect that.
But then if you think about how much money you're spending, maybe it's in relation to how much money they're spending. If they're spending a good lot, a lot of money, then they're going to, they have a lot of high end stuff. like even that Arcam, it's a little bit more work than the
Mm.
Denon or the Marantz, you know.
Mhm.
Could it also be that maybe you expect more from your system? And that's what I've been trying to get at with people is like, you know, if Atmos is selling you that it can do this and that, I'm telling you it cannot, right? It cannot play something inside of your space, but
Or
that's
inside
okay.
your head. Inside your
Inside your
head.
head.
You can't make it inside your head.
But knowing that, right?
Sorry.
Can you make it sound as good as possible for what it can do? Right? Can you make it sound like it's in that dome? Does it sound cohesive when something moves around? Does it sound like it skips from one thing? Or does it sound very smooth? Does it sound like it's making a perfect circle? You know, you can optimize for what it can do so you can get the best possible experience, right? So I think setting the expectation is important too.
That's really the thing. I think a lot of it is it's like people are like, oh, I got this 512 Dolby Atmos soundbar, or what I remember driving and listening to you guys talk about an 11.5.9 soundbar or something retarded like
Ridiculous.
that. Yeah, like I think managing expectations is the best thing that we can all try to do when we're explaining this to people. Like, okay, yeah, it's a 7-channel AVR, you're gonna run 512. Don't try to believe everything Dolby's marketing team is telling you. Like, things are going to sound a little weird, but you won't know that unless you have a bigger system. So it's always kind of this weird back and forth. And I got this great comment. Oh wait, what we got here? A tweak?
Oh, he's just Reverend Slim saying that he's on a budget, right? So, you know, the time he spends maybe can get him better sound. Whereas maybe if you have an unlimited budget, you just go and buy more expensive.
Buy the trim off, and then you're done.
Do it for me.
Maybe those 0%ers were the people with the trim off. Just boom, do it.
Could have been.
Get it done, right? That could be.
Could have been.
Well, and two, you got to think, even like the way that question is framed, it says how often do you spend analyzing your system? Doesn't necessarily say tweaking your system. That's the way I interpreted it.
Okay,
That's
right.
true.
Somebody else may
Well,
be
that's the way I meant
going-
it. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, somebody else may be going, you know, I
Analyze.
wonder,
What do you mean analyze?
should I add another subwoofer to my system? And
Yeah.
that's analyzing it. So
That's true.
I'm not real sure. Like,
Well, based on the
Aaron-
replies, I think most people understood what I was going after. But yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I think
if the comments kind of follow that, then you're probably good.
Yeah.
Where's Reggie
Yeah.
at? I'm sure he's gonna be like, if you chose 50% plus, that means it's too analytical. Those speakers. That's your problem.
something
Maybe.
like that. Yeah.
Maybe.
So I may do a video,
Oh,
like
video?
a video folloh up. Just be
fun,
like,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
you know,
Here's what
what
I
are you
noticed.
guys thinking? Right.
I got a video in the works where I just put my boot down on people's necks.
Oh,
Oh no.
Because you know people like to prove me wrong without proof. So like
What?
Without doing the work.
you can believe
how
that?
dare those trolls?
I know. So I got something to lay the smack down on somebody.
Woo. When's
But,
this one coming out?
in a fun way.
I said, when's this one coming out?
I was hoping to come out today, but I wasn't able to work on it yesterday
So
since I have this
next-
wedding.
next
I think
couple
we're gonna
days?
start in like 30 minutes. Yeah, hopefully this week. I'll Tech Geek had this great so thank you, appreciate it. He says Chana's Panic Room is way much better than a sound engineer who mixes professionally for movies. Kudos to Chana, who actually tests his mixes on 714 and 514. And trust me, when I tried to make some things and then try it on my system upstairs, or I'll even just downgrade my studio system to a 512 from a 714, man, the shit just sounds so weird, right? The stuff happening behind me left and right, like it gets all weird. Even my cool like little Techno Dad intro logo thing, oh, it sounded so weird on 512. I'm like, oh, you know, and a lot of these guys, like that comment we got last time, is like they just do their best.
Mhm.
They mix it in 714 and let the chips fall where they may in the consumer's home. And like, to me, that sounds
Well,
pretty fucking lazy. But if they're not getting paid, I understand that part of it too. If they're not getting paid the time to go that extra steps, then I understand that.
so
Yeah.
I sent Reverend Slim. I sent it to who else? Croson. I sent it to Tan, right? And Chana and you and whoever else in our chat. I sent them a demo that I worked on, Atmos demo, and it took me like 8 hours, and it's 1 minute and 20 seconds, right? No video, no nothing. Right?
Yeah,
Just
no
audio.
video. Yeah.
Okay, so can a normal person spend that much time on an entire movie? So my demo, I think, sounds pretty awesome. I mean, I'll let these guys say, Reverend Slim, if you're there, you can say what you thought, and Paul too. But I think it sounds awesome, like impressive. But I spent 8 hours on it. They can't spend that on a typical movie. They gotta move along. There's many scenes, right?
Yeah. I mean, from what I heard from this other guys, he got a 7-1 mix from them with all the stems and all the sound effects. So if they already have a 7-1 mix bed layer, they can choose what's in the bed, what's in the objects channels, and then they can go from there. So it's not like they're building something from scratch like you did. They're getting it and then they're adding Atmos to it. So so I don't think it's like as extreme as you're saying, but yeah.
Yeah, but
8 hours for 1 minute, minute and a half, like what the hell?
Yeah. It was fun though.
Well, that's why Gravity is still one of the greatest Atmos mixes you'll ever hear, because it was brand new. So they were given the time and the money to just experiment.
And it's also a space movie. I find space movies seem to do better with shit flying around you, because
it makes sense. You're spinning physically in space, so you expect that's a funny thing, because in reality you're in space.
You're not going to hear shit.
She's in a headphone. So if you really think about it, that doesn't work. But our brains thought it was cool anyway.
Oh yeah.
Why it also sounds cool is because a lot of the effects are in that dome of a helmet, right?
Yeah.
You think about your layout, dome shape. You can recreate that sound inside of that sphere pretty well. Right?
Well, but what's interesting, there's one part at the beginning of that where the camera moves inside her helmet, and it sounds like, oh my goodness, it got really close.
Yeah.
And then when the camera starts fading out, when it penetrates and goes through her glass, then it expands. So it's pretty cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob, for the super chat. Don't forget, Odyssey X is on sale, 11/21 to 11/28 for only $150. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Thank you.
Off.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
I said, Jada, this one guy went at you so hard in the comments in one of those videos. I actually felt bad for you. Hey, don't ever feel bad for me, guys. 100%, dude. I really don't care what these people say.
John says, bring it, man.
I know what I'm hearing, and that says that and a lot of people think they hear better than they actually do, and that's just the way life goes, right? I tried to make this analogy before. I can't smell. I haven't been able to smell for like 20 years, right? However, my wife, dude, she's got a crazy nose. She is a level 2 certified sommelier. She'll grab a glass of wine, drink it, and be like, oh yeah, this is from this part of the world, this region in that country, boom, boom, boom. And when she was like actually studying for her test, she's like, this is from this vineyard. It's going to be like, she'll give a range for the actual like vintage, and that's all. It's not taste. It's actually her nose that gives her the ability to do so. And so like, just like that, like I would never be able to do something like that. And just like people can smell better than others, some people can hear better than others. And, like, just like tonight, I'm literally using my ears to make a living. And I do it really well because I charge a shit ton and I get nothing but glowing reviews. So it's just a thing. Like a lot of people, like Aaron, what we were saying before, some of these audio files that just I don't know what the fuck they're hearing, because I heard something totally different when I'm listening to the same thing, same speakers. So it's one of those things. Don't ever feel sorry for me. I know exactly what I'm doing. Okay.
Reverend Slim says, for the record, I agree with the other guys on the layout issue, but I found it petty and classes. I don't really want to address the rest of it. You know what I mean? You guys can read it for yourself. I don't want to spend any time on that, right? I'm busy doing cool stuff, right? I'm doing some fun stuff, right? I didn't
even hear the 2-hour thing, but I told Joe about this yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, I heard from Croson. He watched it." I'm like, "Oh, I should get Paul's notes."
Yeah,
right? Like the clip notes. I'll hit up Paul and be like, "Yo, what happened?"
You don't need to spend time. But yeah. I don't know. I still don't agree with the layout. I think that if you're gonna listen to Atmos, use their layout. Okay. I'm just saying I don't think it's the best layout. I think speakers up are a better configuration, but because it's not what Dolby recommends, and if Dolby's making all the movies, you may want to just use their recommendation. I still don't think it's the best though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So-
Here, I got a jet, but let's do this one video for geeks.
Yeah.
Can anyone recommend some great Atmos demo discs? Not movies, but Atmos discs. So really, there's only a few. There's a 2016 Atmos disc. I think there was a 2014 one, but all those demos are on the 2016 disc. Then there's a 2018 from August, which has new stuff on it. Then there's a 2018 from March, which is a Dolby Vision disc, which you need Dolby Vision. If you don't have Dolby Vision, it won't play any audio. But other than that, let's actually talk about some movies. I would say let's do 2 movies from each of us. I'll go first. 300 and Midway. That's it. And then Aaron, I guess you just
I was just like, I'm just gonna sit this one out.
no, Aaron, your favorite.
No, you mentioned
80s
one
movie.
earlier. You mentioned one earlier today. Casablanca.
Okay, sure, I'll do that. Yeah. How about we just go Top Gun Maverick? Is that one good for Atmos?
That's a good.
Yeah, that is.
I mean, there's mixed reviews. Shane checked it out on his Trinov, and he said it was a complete static mix, except for 2 flyovers or 3 flyovers, a handful of flyovers. So
That's the other thing. I don't think that the fact that there's no objects doesn't mean isn't going to be great, right?
Yeah.
The fact that there's objects, right, doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Everybody loves a Ready Player One, and that was not even done with objects. It was done on a 712 bed. So
Kind of interesting.
Kind
of interesting.
So what do you think, Elon? You're our guest. What do you think?
Well, I already said one of them, Gravity.
Gravity.
Sure.
Okay.
But gosh,
Somebody's food is done.
Either that or a truck is backing up.
How about Dune?
Dune, yeah. Blade Runner 2049. Just because. Well, that I'll go old school. The remastered 4K of The Matrix.
Oh,
They definitely remastered that thing. They didn't just pump it through an Atmos upmixer real quick.
Mm-hmm.
No, man, they really took the time to move all those sound objects or whatever into all those height channels and stuff. It's a really good mix. I liked it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
Mike, what
Ford
about
versus
Mike?
Ferrari. I don't know, maybe Ford versus Ferrari. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Enjoy that.
That is a good one. All right. Well, we've been on for a while. I'm gonna hop on the after show.
Yeah,
I'll be on for
I won't be there.
I know you guys have to. Some of you guys have to take off, but if you want to join us, it's patreon.com/Daily HiFi, and we just talk with one another. Exchange ideas. They get access to some of the exclusives. Some exclusive stuff. So.
Yeah.
Oh, real fast. So this guy's with me. He said he hears Matrix is great too. Like I don't use Atmos. I use just regular old Dolby Pro Logic 2. Matrix is the sound. That's a terrible joke. All right.
But I don't have my soundboard. But
All right. Hey, by the way, 5.1 still sounds awesome. If it's a real good 5.1 mix,
Oh yeah.
it sounds awesome.
If it's done right, yeah. For
yeah.
sure.
All right, take us out, Chana.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the Daily HiFi Podcast. We do this every Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. On behalf of myself, Elon, Mike, Aaron, Joe. I almost lost everybody's name. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I saying?
We don't have it on the screen.
I know. It's on the screen. I'm like, oh. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. If you're in the Patreon after show, I will not see you there, but you might see Joe and some of these other guys there. And again, we'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.